To those joining online, and good morning and welcome to those joining here in the room. Welcome to our Microsoft offices here in Brussels. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's event of the Healthcare Data Innovation Council, where we'll be discussing AI and data in healthcare, trends in Gen AI, regulations and compliance. We are thrilled to have such a diverse, distinguished and international group of attendees representing a wide variety of stakeholders ranging from healthcare professionals, policymakers and industry leaders. Prior to joining Microsoft, I actually worked in healthcare policy for about 5 years. So today's topics on the intersection of healthcare policy, digital innovation are very close to my heart. The Healthcare Data Innovation Council, established in 2022, serves as a think tank for international healthcare and digital actors, aiming to promote opportunities for the use of AI, data, and advanced analytics in healthcare and to advance recommendations and regulatory frameworks. The Council brings together multidisciplinary and international experts to demystify current and upcoming regulation, accelerate harmonization, and establish data sharing frameworks, while raising awareness of the impact of these regulations. Additionally, the Council seeks to foster new initiatives around the secondary use of data, facilitate data-driven approaches, and share best practices in the use of AI to advance healthcare. Over the past 2 years, the Council has made significant strides in fostering collaboration and innovation, driving relevant discussions on Gen AI and data applications across various industry segments. This high-level community now consists of 24 experts spanning research, clinical, regulatory, and technical fields. They each bring their own perspectives, showcasing opportunities and collaboratively identifying challenges to overcome. The Council has helped to consolidate a crucial ecosystem, expanding a network of experts and key industry players, and through international events in Milan, Brussels, Zurich, and Madrid, the Council has promoted its work, connected with other EU initiatives, and amplified its visibility and messaging. And that message is all about enhancing patient outcomes and healthcare efficiency through the use of digital technologies like AI. The Council fosters innovation through its partners. One initiative aimed at improving patient outcomes and operational efficiency is led by the Madrid Health Service, which is utilizing Gen AI to improve the diagnosis of rare diseases. In collaboration with the Community of Madrid and Foundation 29, they are using OpenAI's GPT-4 model via Azure OpenAI service. The application acts as a conversational assistant. Doctors enter a clinical description and are assisted by the Gen AI model, which suggests possible pathologies. Doctors can then refine these results by adding more data and clinical information. This technology enhances diagnostic capabilities, delivering faster and more accurate results, ultimately improving patient outcomes and reducing wait times. Council partners are also deeply engaged in other European projects, such as the European Cancer Imaging Initiative, a flagship project under Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. With 76 partners and 18 million in funding, this initiative is creating a pan-European digital federated infrastructure of fair, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable cancer-related de-identified images, bridging the gap between diverse data sets scattered across various projects and institutions. This infrastructure maintains data sovereignty while providing a platform for developing and benchmarking AI tools for precision medicine. All data sets ingested into the platform undergo a series of quality checks, and all algorithms are validated across several data sets before entering the marketplace. This initiative ensures that vast amounts of cancer images and linked clinical data are accessible to clinicians, researchers, and innovators, while upholding high standards of ethics, trust, security, and personal data protection. Both this and the previous example are showcases of what can be achieved when you put the right people together and empower their vision with the latest innovative technologies like AI. For all these reasons, Microsoft has been a supporter of the Council since its conception. We firmly believe that we have entered the era of AI in healthcare, where data and algorithms augment human capabilities and enable new possibilities for improving health and well-being. AI can help us understand complex patterns, generate insights, and provide recommendations that can enhance clinical decision-making, personalize care, and empower patients, as well as automate tasks to improve productivity. That said, AI in healthcare also comes with many challenges, such as ensuring the quality of model training data, privacy, security, and compliance, as well as addressing ethical, social, and legal implications. Building trust in this technology will be fundamentally important for its success, as we know that people will only use new technology when they can trust it. Today presents a great opportunity to highlight the revolutionary impact of AI and data in healthcare from a multidisciplinary perspective, enhancing our collective ability to promote and adopt new technologies in the sector. I would like to close with the words of our President and Vice Chair, Brad Smith. He said, "Don't ask what computers can do, but ask what they should do." And I think there is no better way to answer that question about what they should do than by the discussions that we will be having here today. I want to thank all the speakers of today for joining us and the organizers for making this happen. I'm looking forward to what I'm sure will be an inspiring and insightful morning. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this rainy day in Brussels. I am Stefano Sedola, and I am here to moderate the event today. And the event today, I am the founder of a company called Strategy. Strategy is a company that develops AI systems, and we have founded the company together with Andrea, who will speak just after me, with the idea that AI can have an impact on society. So we are focusing on areas of where AI can bring impactful ideas and solutions into society. Healthcare is one, but also environment, energy, education. Now, I want to connect with you a little bit before I go to a short presentation and introduce you to the panel and the event. I always had a little bit of an issue with doctors myself, because when I go to a doctor, normally I have something. I have some symptoms of my sick, and the doctor always gives me treat me my symptom. And I ask questions. I say, but what if it's not that? What if it's something else? What if it's you are just treating my symptom and not the cause, the root cause of why I'm here? No, Stefan, take this and go home. Always the same thing. Take this, go home. But I think healthcare, or let's say, treating the health comes, and healthcare also overall comes, deals with the human, and the human are complex and an holistic entity. So the universe kind of punished me because it said, now we're going to deal with the complexity of healthcare. And then you're going to understand why they give you just a pill. And somehow it's obviously it's a joke, but healthcare is very complex, and you all know, because you are probably coming from that sector, and you know how difficult it is to integrate different elements and different stakeholders of the healthcare. And that's why we were somehow the universe had also give us the opportunity to create the Healthcare Data Innovation Council, thanks to different stakeholders. And when we created this, we had this in mind, to bring different stakeholders, different voices within the council, so that we could actually represent a different angle of this complex system. But we use a lens. We use a lens. And next slide. I can move this, isn't it? I can use this, right? Thanks. And we use this slide of looking at AI, because we are an AI company. That's so we focus on what we know. And then we said, well, AI without data is not, there is no AI without data, so we also need to put data inside. And then we realized that if you want to do something with data that are healthcare data, which are sensitive, in Europe, well, you cannot escape regulations. And oh my God, that there is a kind of complexity jungle there. And so this is what we deal in the council: AI, data, and the complexity of regulation, and how we're going to deal with all that. So we don't. So finally, we are not going to find my solution of which I've been looking for, a more holistic. But at least we are going to look at these three things and how this works together. And so the event today is going to look. We brought for you a selection of different speakers. Andrea will talk more about new trends in AI. Well, AI is fascinating, and now with the generative AI coming in, it's really mind-blowing. It's going to actually project you into a stratosphere of new ideas and what's going to happen in the health, what is happening and is going to happen in the healthcare sector in relation to AI. We're going to have another speaker talking about the recent development in the legislation. Then we're going to have an interesting fireside chat with Ricard, Martinez, and Isabel. They're going to be online. It's going to be interesting because they're going to bring the idea of the angle of the regulation and how impact competitiveness, and also going to talk about a very interesting project EUCAIM on cancer images. And then we're going to continue with different, talking about trustworthy in AI. And then we're going to have an interesting panel with different voices. I hope you enjoy. We made this for you. And we're going to hope you're going to interact with us. Let me give you, just before I leave the floor, a few more things. This Benjamin already explained the objective of the council. But let me give you a background about that, because this objective have been, there is a why behind that. We all know there is a need for change in the healthcare sector. And this need is basically aging population, healthcare cost becoming more and more prohibitive or increasing, chronic disease everywhere, or let's say increasing and impacting the population. But on the other hand, there are more data available, more computing power, AI, generative AI. So there is an amount of safeguards as well. And so there is an amount of enabler that actually enable this transformation that will go towards what I like more, this more holistic healthcare that is going to go towards more predictive, personalized, participative, and the so-called 4 Ps of the healthcare. And so, but the solution that will emerge from there will need to add value. And how we extract value from this solution, I tell you, is very difficult, because when we are developing the solution, to extract this value is so complex in healthcare that is a real challenge. But all the ingredients are there. So we create the council to somehow share best practices, facilitate the dialogue, and actually improve the usage of AI and advanced analytics. And the council is basically this a multidisciplinary group of experts. There is this idea that if we bring experts from different points of view, patient, research institute, physician, clinician, government, tech company, then this will provide a better outcome. And we've been working on for the last 3 years. So first, we focus maybe on data, on data-driven healthcare, then AI in healthcare. This year, we've been deepening more on generative AI in data. And we did this all by creating, on one side, establishing a network of experts. This is important because all the experts that work together with us are really savant in their own field. And by bringing them together, we can actually address, we were able to address different challenges, and especially to actually build stories around their experiences. And these stories is what makes more concrete how problems come, how challenges, what are the challenges, and how to address this. It makes very concrete the whole complexity through these stories. The stories are available into the website of the council, into the social media of the council. Some of them you will hear today by examples. And we've been consolidating over the years this network of experts. We have been doing some events, more to share the various stories and various initiatives that we came across during the council. And, oops, let me go back before. And the council somehow managed to connect to various initiatives, international initiative, Gaia-X, other associations or initiatives in this sphere, this field. What is our vision for the futures? Is that the council can become a sustainable community of practice that will serve somehow the different stakeholders. And now I pause here. I think I talk even too much. But I will introduce Andrea Pescino. And he will talk about, he's the co-founder and partner of Strategy. And it's always a pleasure to listen to him because he has always these visionary ideas, and I hope you enjoy. Andrea, please.
Thanks a lot. Okay, can you hear me? Yep, okay, great. Thanks. Thanks to be here. A pleasure to be always to be here and to tell you what we've discovered, even in practical cases that we go through across the AI. I've been in the AI sector for more than 30 years now. I've studied that actually to university when it wasn't that cool like it's in these days. So I'm going through this first thing, which is funny. I show very frequently these slides. So basically, how I see AI, especially my field of AI, which is machine learning, and so using mathematics basically to approximate events or to approximate things that happens, is taking a look at the blue line. You see, it's growing steadily since probably the past 15, 18 years, while in the past, it was very easy to overlook. We go through many events and we try to explain the opportunity of using AI, of using data. And there was this AI effect. I remember, I saw that many times. So you say, oh, wow, can you see what AI can do for you? And you say, yeah, but it's not real intelligence. That was in the past. Then at some point, we've reached a tipping point, and now it's impossible to ignore. And there is the ELIZA effect. And so I've read a nice story, because now there is a site which has 24 million of users, which basically gives virtual girlfriends or boyfriends on a chat. And the people are very happy. ELIZA, actually, it's funny. If you want to take a look, it was an experiment that was conducted in the 60s, so not yesterday, when they use a very traditional AI, so a semantic one, to emulate what was a Rogerian therapist. And so basically, it took what you write. And so how do you feel today? Oh, I feel a little bit sad. And why are you feeling sad? So it's not intelligence. And many people told it understands me better than my wife or my parents or so on. So now we are in a space where the things are, where these things is impossible to ignore, and it's becoming disruptive. So the opportunities is growing, even if the technology will grow like that. The technology will grow like that because basically this is not my slide, it's from Ray Kurzweil, because the computing capacity at fixed dollar cost grow over the past century. And it will continue to grow. Now it actually is accelerating, so we will have more and more computing power at the same price. And that's basically the reason why we are becoming better and better in what we are doing with AI. So let's talk now a little bit less about AI and a little bit more about foundation models. This year, I think you already know that traditional generative AI can pass the examinations, for example, in the States for becoming a clinician. So there are questions there, and they try, okay, let's see if GPT-3, 3.5, Gemini are trying to pass that. But there was a nice study, which was conducted in Israel, basically. It was published the 12th of April. And so basically they took GPT 3.5, which was free at the time, and GPT-4, and they compare the results on a large cohort of physicians, 849, which already go through an examination to obtain the medical specialist license. in 5 fields. And so basically internal medicine, general surgery, pediatrics, psychiatry, and obstetric and gynecology. And they say, okay, the model is a little bit stochastic. They are predictive models. And so I will run 120 times each test with those models. So they have a strong benchmark. They have a human benchmark, a strong one. And they say, okay, let's take a look. How do GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 positions? And you may see that, for example, in psychiatry, GPT 4 was in the very upper part of the Gaussian curve. So way better than the physician, on an average, who are applying for being specialists in the topic. And it's very cited as a study. If you are curious, you can go through that. And it works a little bit worse, for example, on pediatrics, good on internal medicine, but it's not that the case. When I saw that, I say, okay, that's pretty interesting, but it's funny. Because basically, those tools, so GPT-4 and 3.5, are not medical tools. They are not adapted to be medical tools. They are very generic. You can ask them anything. They are wide. But they are what are called foundation models. So what are foundation models? This is taken from another pretty interesting paper. It's pretty divulgative if anyone want to take a look, from the Center of Research on Foundation Models. So basically, how humans acquire languages. So we are young humans, and so we do questions, and we go through the language, we hear the language, the common sense, we play a little bit, and so we learn the language. In that case, in the foundation models, we normally give them 2 things. One thing is the language, and so we fetch in those models a lot of the language. So they are not generative, they are pre-trained. We put them 3 to 4 orders of magnitude more language than a human. So we put there a lot of information, or in some cases, the vision, and so a lot of images. For example, images that in the healthcare space are pretty significant for the diagnosis. And then we have something that can understand. The point is that they are not tools off the shelf. So especially in the healthcare sector, but not only in that, you have to use that, oh, sorry, I go back, on tools that acquires data, they train themselves, and so they become adapt. Adapt to do specific tasks in this case. So for example, I take a lot of data on question answering. And then I create a specific model out of what I have just to do Q&A. Or I want to do only sentiment analysis. So I want to understand which is the sentiment present in a specific text. And so I adapt those kind of models on that. The same thing I could do for industry. And in the healthcare is more important than ever, because basically I have a lot of sources. A lot of the time those sources are unstructured, so are not very structured. Obviously, you can consume information that comes from a sensor, and so this information is pretty structured, but you can have an EMR in many languages. Imagine, I was just telling a story when we were starting the project AIDA. I will talk about AIDA in a while. They say, oh, we have a lot of EMR, very good EMR on cytopathology from the University of Latvia. And I say, okay, we can take a look at them. They were written in Latvian, even with the alphabet. So imagine putting together those data. It's pretty complicated, but those tools can ingest those data, can harmonize those data, can adapt themselves, and then they can become able to do, they are called downstream tasks. And so interface for care providers, even interface for patients, or specific tools for doing specific things, very, very particular. But we will take a look at that in a while. On the application side, if you read the study, there are 3 areas in which those applications of the foundation models will be key. The first one is healthcare, then law and education. So the point of the adaptation is that you can do anything like that, but not everything. So if you have a very, very wide model, like GPT-4, like Sonnet, like there are many, Llama, yesterday Llama 3.2 came out, it's an open source, pretty powerful, but they are very wide. You have to adapt them to do something more specific. And the speed at which they come is incredible. So you have more and more and more powerful engine. So where's the value? The value is in the data, because with the right data, you can add up those models and have something which is very effective. The point is having, a growth on the maturity level. The vast majority who are discussing about those Gen AI, which I say is pre-trained AI, are here. And so they are on the awareness side, so they are discovering the technologies. There are people in the organization which are starting to use that. There is a lot of talks, which it's very funny for me, about prompt engineering. And so people is writing the right prompt to do that. Then they are starting to adopt that, basic training, understanding the value of the tool. They are distributing to users. And the first one is the things that a lot of people are starting to do. I say, I do RAG. So I put some documents in those, and then I extract some values. This is extremely basic. It's the very basic of those tools. If you move on, you start to adapt them. And so you start to fine-tune those. And so to have models which not do everything, but they do what you want them to do. If you want to understand, for example, an EMR in a specific area, so pediatrics, you have to adapt them for this. Not only the general, to have a small model about that. So you have to fine-tune an internal curated data. You have to access highly curated data about pediatrics diagnosis, for example, or pediatrics treatment. They could be two different models, one for the diagnosis and one for the treatment. And then you have to optimize them, because those models are very big. And now the next generation of models which will come out will be way bigger than them. So you need to optimize them. There are many things there, distillation, quantization, which are totally out of the radar for many people, because basically the architectural impact that we will have when we will have multi-agent applications. And so applications where many models, small models, will cooperate among them to create something which has value. And in the healthcare space, it will be more important than ever. So there is a maturity, and we need to unleash this maturity, and so to create the awareness about this maturity. This is an example of a multi-agent. There are already frameworks. Autogen is a framework which is available. They are available for free. And though this is an example not related to healthcare, but basically where you have multiple agents which create software, which is the same thing. So if I will have an assistant agent will be always present because they have to interact with humans, but you can have, for example, something which will process EMR, something which will translate, for example, reports in different languages, or something that interact because agents will not need to be predictive models. You can have semantic models, or you can have vision models, and so can extract information from MRI or things like that. Let's take a look at some applied experiences. So one of the first one, which was interesting, was AIDA. AIDA is a research study which have that in mind. So an artificial intelligent diagnosis assistant for gastric inflammation. So what we saw is that here we have a pretty significant area. We were excited to collaborate with all the people in AIDA because basically the gastric cancer can be tackled very early without even developing the gastric cancer. We will see that in a while. But we will need to ingest very different type of data. So we have data that comes from the Helicobacter pylori registry, or we have data from the omics or the microbiome, which are very complicated, very huge data, very significant. And so we have to do several types of data processing and have a single front end. Single front end that will be offered to clinicians or even to patients with different flavors. So the idea is to go to the foundations model again, and so to ingest very different type of data, even wide medical domain knowledge, so not specifically only the data that comes from the hospitals, and then to create those dynamic tasks application. Why AIDA is great? Because basically a guy, quite some years ago, discovered this chorea cascade. So basically discovered that at the beginning, you have this Helicobacter pylori infection. This Helicobacter pylori infection starts to infiltrate your mucosa, and then it starts to bring you to the atrophic gastritis. After that, you go to the intestinal metaplasia because your intestinal cells changes a little bit, and then you go to the precancerous lesion with dysplasia. Here, so in the premalignant conditions and lesions, you can be treated without developing a cancer. And even doing Helicobacter pylori eradication strategies can turn off the gastric cancer. So you can intervene here by doing Helicobacter pylori eradication. The point is that Helicobacter pylori, unfortunately, is present in 50% of the population. So it's very widespread, but only 1.2% of those population who are infected will develop a gastric cancer. So we need to have better information here, better data, even better communication, better dissemination. So we need to intervene here. And so basically, this is what we did. One of the first things that we did, this is a study that have been published from the AIDA consortium just a couple of months ago. We say, okay, let's take a look at the foundation models which exists, because for handling that, we need to take care of pathology or endoscopy. I don't know if you are familiar with the terms, but basically, if you have a dysplasia or gastric intestinal metaplasia, you normally have an endoscopy. And so they put a camera down your throat, and they record video. And when they find something which is critical, they take a small portion of that lesion, and then they do pathology on that. And we see that, for example, we have 4 types of different foundation models. So there are foundation models which are only visual, for example, for the endoscopy, because it's a video. And they want simply to highlight when there is something which is critical. Or something in the pathology, we have visually or textually, and even in the visually, they do classification or segmentation. And so, is that a cancer or not? Is that critical or not? And where is the problem? So we do the analysis, and basically, we start to understand how they work and which of those foundation models work better. Because we need to integrate those foundation models in several agents. Because even doing that, as we say, we need to have something for the endoscopy and something for the pathology. And something for the Helicobacter pylori eradication. So what we want to do, for example, is moving on another side, totally different side, and say, okay, Helicobacter pylori eradication is something that will be incredibly widespread, because 50% of the population is infected. And so every time you have some problem, I don't want to scare you, but it's something, all the times that I'm talking about that, people is starting to go into a gastroenterologist for having a visit, which is great, actually, but, you need to have more information and more clarity about that. And here, LLM can do a huge difference, because there are a few gastroenterologists, but the information can be widespread more effectively. And so what we are now developing, we are gathering data for doing Helicobacter pylori fine-tuning. So we will not have a model for gastroenterologists. We will have a model for Helicobacter pylori only, very, very, very specific. We will check which model will be more effective. We will create a benchmark that will be a standard that can be published and be available to everybody. And on that, we will do what is called RAFT. RAFT is retrieval augmented fine-tuning. And so we will put together both the data, because the data will still come. So we will have new research on Helicobacter pylori treatment over time, and fine-tuning of what we have so far. And with that, we have an ever-increased, ever-updated model that can answer about that. We will create a specific benchmark test, and then we will compare with humans at different levels. So how do they compare against general practitioners? How do they compare with top-level gastroenterologists on Helicobacter pylori? Having the data will allow us to have a model that will be ever updated, because when we will have, we saw the speed, when we will have, I don't know, GPT-7, they will never be called GPT-7, but let me say, a model with such a high level of performance, we still get the data, we'll still do the fine-tuning, we'll still do the RAFT, and we will have a better model. So basically, the takeaway is to leave the floor to others. AI is growing and will become a key enabler of healthcare. But we need to move on the maturity. And so ChatGPT catalyzed was a pivotal shift. When we saw the tipping point, everybody, lots of the time I go in conferences, and people is talking about AI, but they are really talking about ChatGPT, which is not AI, it's a tool. It's an application, actually. Data will remain a critical asset. So everybody, especially now, need to take care of their data, to curate their data. And not only the traditional data, so the numerical data that all the organizations have, but also the unstructured data. And putting together data will be easier because those tools can also do the translation when they do the harmonization. Foundation model needs a maturity journey. So there is the need to disseminate this maturity concept and to move towards the agents rather than using them off the shelf or doing some sort of RAGs and consuming the API. And the future will be not only have agents, but also different technologies. Because you can have an agent which can do a segmentation of a pathological image, which is very effective, and you can change only that agent, while the other on the architecture will remain the same. Thanks a lot.
Andrea, there is a little bit of time if there are questions from you can take.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks. I saw looking for the mic. We are among friends. I think we can hear pretty well, but.
Thank you. Thank you for this very clear presentation that put building blocks side by side. Where I'm less comfortable is on the end of your story, on the study that you were doing.
This one?
Yes. Why to try to be better than human specialists? This is not really the main point. The main point is that the technology can at least be as good as, but can do much more in terms of quantity. If you want to do prevention, and if you want to screen the population, no healthcare system can do that without technologies like this. So the end of the story, or the real value for AI solutions, is not to be better than clinicians, is to be as good, but to be able to process much more data and to process and to care much more a much larger part of the population. That's at least where I feel more comfortable.
It's an incredibly very good point. I can answer with two things. First, the objective is not to take off gastroenterologists, is to leave them, the space. One of the biggest problems that we saw, we work on the data, I work on data since, I don't know, 35 years, is that now doctors have less than 7 minutes per patient. They are incredibly overstressed. When they say 7 minutes, I can imagine why the people just give the pill to Stefano and they throw him away. They don't have the time. We are becoming older and older, and there is no time for doing the research, for example, or to do reflections of the diagnosis. So this is an example of something that could accelerate. I always thought that the human ingenuity will be something key in the future. I bring normally the example of the GPS. Okay, everybody, I go in the Scout when I was very young, and I have a huge sense of, I know where I am in a city. But now, when I have to move even 500 meters, I do Google Maps. This is not killing myself. It's simply helping myself to be better, more efficient, faster, and I can, have my ingenuity for doing something different. So I think that those models, the comparison with human specialists, is for having the trustworthiness. You need to have what is called post-hoc explainability, and so why they are effective, because they are black boxes, are very complicated to have ex-ante explainability and to have the trustworthiness, but there is no goal of taking away. And we are doing that basically with the Helicobacter pylori registry, which are the top-notch gastroenterologists and so. But thanks a lot for bringing this out, because it's always a relevant theme.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything else? Anyone want to add something or even comment?
I have a question, and it's, you presented the part of AI that aims to. Okay. Thank you very much. You've talked about the part of AI that aims to treat something that is malfunctioning, but what about the part of AI that takes something that functions normally and then enhances it? So if you take, for example, a person that is, I don't know, healthy, and you make them healthier, or someone smart and you make them smarter with the help of artificial intelligence, to say so. What about that side of the story?
Well, sure, it's a nice story. I have to say that is partially true, let me say, because, for example, when we saw the people that are infected by Helicobacter pylori, the vast majority of the people who is infected with the Helicobacter pylori doesn't know about that. They are not even, they are called patient because they have an infection, but they are not even, called frequently patients. We work, for example, on another project which is for the early diagnosis of chronic kidney disease, CKD. Okay, CKD in its early stages, so you start to have your kidney which functions a little bit less than effective, but they are totally asymptomatic. I remember talking with the clinician the first time, I say, the patients, and they are not patients, they are not sick. I say, okay, that's it. So this is something that you can have with data-driven healthcare rather than only artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence can be, a specific topic. And so you can treat earlier, and you can give preventive, as Stefano anticipated, and earlier diagnosis and earlier treatment. I think that there is the space also to have, better human. There is Harari who wrote a book about that, which is pretty funny, and it's pretty interesting. Even GPS, I bring the example of GPS that brought us to be a little bit superhuman. In the future, we will have those kind of things that will help us reason more effectively, or for example, speaking many languages. I've gone through, for example, machines automated translation is called like that, and my wife is an interpreter. You can imagine how she lives at home. So all the times, in the future we will have probably something in the year that allows us to speak any languages pretty effectively, and so we will have things like that. But I think that especially in Europe, when we have the oldest population in the world, say for Japan, I think we need to take care of the people and to save some lives. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for the clear presentation. I'm wondering how accessible will be this model, because we all know that Helicobacter pylori bacteria is spreading a lot in South country around the world, where this model will be very needed. ChatGPT is accessible everywhere, but I'm looking forward to see how you move forward with it.
No, you touch an incredibly valid point. I think that we worked a lot in developing countries. I had the honor, together with Stefano, of writing, for example, the AI blueprint for Africa. So and what we wrote is basically that there is the opportunity of doing a leapfrog. That's exactly what we had with those agents. So if we will have an agent, the agent will be published on the AIDA website. So if you go on the AIDA EU project website, when it will be ready, you can access those. There will be a patient facing, and so that will talk not in clinical terms, but will talk easier and describe what you can do, for example, on your dietary prescriptions or how you can treat that and which are the standard treatment and the better effective line of treatments that we are gathering also with Helicobacter pylori. Those kind of tools can be made widespread. Then there are cultural resistance, languages, and other hurdles that needs to be tackled. But that's the opportunity. So like the GPS, it has become widespread. Those kind of tools can become widespread, and you can have agents that can be published everywhere in the world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We take one more question, then we move to the next.
No, actually, the question is triggered by the previous comment. How do you become intentional so that the data sets are really representative? Because I think you will have a diverse population, so probably, and you were describing really well, the different tolerance that we have also to the bacteria, etc. So how are you intentional about that data?
That's a very valid one, and also there was a study 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, where they gathered that probably, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was close to 80–90% of the artificial intelligence study conducted in the clinical only referred to a cohort of white people coming from North America. So it's pretty less representative. There are biological principles that are pretty wide. I have the example of chronic kidney disease. When I was doing that study, I was struggling a lot with the privacy law in Italy because basically they cannot give us the data. It's impossible because they say, hey, but if they are willing, they are giving the consent. And then we received 15,000 data points of patients from India that they are willing to give that for free. We tested the model on those patients, and then we validate the same thing. But that was an algorithm which is, let me say, a laser pointer. So pretty effective, and then you need to have this cross-validation. When you disseminate, for example, something that publish the updated research is global. And so, or even very simple information like the nutrition, the dietary, or even the fact that, for example, something that we saw with the Helicobacter pylori registry is that different countries in Europe have different line of treatments. And so the first line, or even the quantity of proton pump inhibitor that you have to supplement during the antibiotics treatments is different. But there is something which is more effective across the board. And so this will help Europe standardizing, for example, the lines of treatments. But when you standardize the line of treatment, you can propose those information even outside, even to the States or to Africa or to Asia. Actually, in Asia, it's more widespread than in Africa, for example. And so those kind of things then will need to be cross-validated by somebody who is there, also for facilitating the cultural, let me say, transformation. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Now we welcome Tjade Stroband, the Director of European Government Affairs of Microsoft. And he will guide us through AI in healthcare and the policies in Europe. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's working great. Very happy to be here. Very tough act to follow, Andrea. Going right into the depths. I'm going to bring everybody back to the Brussels bubble kind of policy sphere and talk a little bit about what we're looking at today. Now, of course, as Stefano and Andrea have been mentioning, really the North Star, of course, for us is to make sure that AI transforms healthcare and really drives that impact for everybody, both and especially also the global south, which is a very, very important thing. And I think all the advancements really have the opportunity to bring that change to everyone. So, of course, we're now in a period of a new commission, and there's been a lot of discussion about what the new commission should be doing. And we had, of course, here in Brussels and also in capitals, a lot of discussions and thoughts about the 400 pages worth of Draghi report recommendations for the new commission about where we are and what Europe should do to improve its competitiveness. So when we are looking at the health part of that, there are some interesting things on health, and this was particularly striking also for today's conversations. Access to health data is, of course, one of the preconditions, but the development of access to that is very constrained by fragmentation. Of course, Europe in particular, we have a single market, but it's a thing of beauty, but it's ever evolving and hopefully in the right direction. But in particular, on the health side of things, this is particularly fragmented. And here also, the GDPR has been called out several times, actually, in this report as really preventing a lot of potential that is needed with all the health data that we have to be incorporated into also AI data-driven health research. So when we're talking about technology regulation in Microsoft, we really, and in particular also the AI development, we really like to look at the data and the technology stack for AI. And it's really important in our view that the right responsibilities are laid onto the right entities in the value chain or in the tech stack, as we say it. And we've been looking a bit at what is the current acquis in Europe that is currently addressing those different parts of the value chain. And here we have a couple of dots, colorful dots that represent the legislation, some of the legislation that is out there that is relevant currently and will be continue to be relevant as well. Here, this is illustrative. This is for what will be continue to be relevant moving forward and potentially already on the horizon coming. And again, this is really the complexity of the things that are already applicable to a lot of these parts in the tech stack. Now, this is all these colorful balls. These all reminded me of one of my favorite commercials about like color screen TV from 14, 15 years ago. I don't know whether you remember it, but of these 10,000s of balls bouncy balls that they threw down San Francisco, one of those steep roads. And of course, it is not as, I was thinking about is there an analogy? And I think the analogy there is that, the complexity of how all these balls interact maybe is a bit like the complexity of all the regulatory colorful balls that you saw in the previous slide. So, of course, at Microsoft, we are certainly not saying regulation is bad. We're very often very much in favor of the right type of regulation, placed on the right type of entity, providing guardrails for responsible development. And how we are doing that within Microsoft on AI is our Health Responsible AI Standard, which we've incorporated into our work streams. So it's really embedded into our processes, so our engineers and product developers are taking this really into account. And in the context of AI, of course, we have the AI Act. This standard has also already incorporated, it's from 2022, 2021, or it's from 2021 and published in 22, available for everyone to look through and learn from. And that already took into account the AI Act's initial proposal. And of course, as we move forward, we will be iterating on that further, including to be able to abide by all the regulatory standards in every market that we are, of course, working in. Now, looking at regulation in general, we see a couple of important priorities when looking at the evolving AI policy landscape. And one of those is, of course, a risk-based approach. The AI has a risk-based approach. Everybody knows that, acknowledges that, but it's easier said than done. So it's good to say, important, but how that works out in practice is still to be determined. And in particular, of course, when we saw the model piece being put into the regulation, also there, figuring out what is risk-based is something that we will be looking at very carefully all together here, and I'll come to that in a bit. Of course, as I just said, the tech stack, regulatory architecture matching the technology architecture, but in particular, and I think this is also so great why, looking at Andreas' talk just now, really looking at the science, the measurement, and seeing how we can put this all in practice. And what was particularly important here is the international aspect. AI is really an internationally important development, and we need to make sure that there is alignment along, global alignment in the end. The AI Act will have an important role in that, but really having these international standards is crucial, not just for internationally operating companies, but also in particular, of course, for small and medium-sized enterprises, startups, and in particular in the healthcare sector, which is constrained by many, many constraints, as we all know. And of course, streamlined enforcement, also super critical for particularly the smaller and upcoming and more fragmented markets. This was a slower one. Yes, so now, of course, we have in the current, we're heading into a new mandate, but of course, the AI Act will be an important piece of legislation moving forward, and that is still to be worked out. So many pieces still to be worked out, over 60 guidelines, templates, delegated implementing acts that the Commission still has to develop. One of the important things related to models, of course, is the code of practice in which model providers like us, but also more broadly civil society, downstream deployers, and other experts, academics will be working together to really tease out what it means, these things that the co-legislators put in terms of requirements back in, what was it, December last year. So that's really going to be a very important piece. That work starts on Monday, actually, with the kickoff meeting. As many of you may have seen in your LinkedIn feeds, there are loads of people that have been admitted to this process. So it's going to be a very, very important, but also very challenging process to get this right, with so many people and experts being in this part of this process. I'm not only working on AI policy at Microsoft, but also on disinformation policy, and I've had the privilege to be part of the disinformation code of practice negotiations, which was around that time already only like 20-something stakeholders together coming to a code of practice with commitments and measures and KPIs. And that was a very challenging process. That was a very intense process, and that took longer than the officially 9 months that we will have for this process. And actually, we're now down to 7 when we start that process on Monday. So it's really a super important part of this, of the regulatory landscape for AI here in Brussels, and will, of course, have an important effect also, a Brussels effect, as they like to say in Brussels, at the international level. Now, another legacy piece of regulation from the previous, from VDL1, from von der Leyen's first commission, is of course the HGS. Not yet fully completely finalized. You know, a few meters down the road, they are dotting the I's and crossing the T's in order to allow the Council and the Parliament to adopt it and have it in place. But this is really not for those that are easily distracted. If you look at how long this timeline is in terms of its implementation, how much work still has to be done, both at the European level as well as, especially, I think also at the member state level, in order to make this really an important a piece of legislation that works out in practice. And I think, you know, today's discussion will be contributing to that work, I think, as well, and the importance of data, and I think like the bias that has been mentioned is, of course, super crucial in that as well. And then looking forward to the new commission. I mean, we have Commissioner Designate Valeri from Hungary that is slated to become the Health and Animal Welfare Commissioner in charge of DG Sante and the HERA agency. And in the mission letter from VDL, there was really the emphasis on completing the health union, improving access to advanced treatments, competitiveness, again, a theme throughout, and ensuring resilience and security of health systems. And a couple of golden oldies and new proposals. We have a Critical Medicines Act, a Biotech Act coming up, as well as guidance on the use of AI in the context of a medicine's life cycle, genome sequencing capacities proposals, as well as, of course, the health space and MDR, medical devices regulation, in terms of evaluating, implementing, and evaluating what is coming there. So that is what we are looking at. There is a lot of work to be done collectively by the Commission, by everybody here in the room, and more broadly. And as Microsoft, we, of course, are very happy to support this important council and the work that they are doing. I'm very happy to see the discussion today and moving forward on these super critical topics. Thank you.
You can take a few questions if you want.
If there are any. Yes.
I have a very quick question. Will slides be shared afterwards?
I'm looking.
Everyone taking pictures?
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I leave it to you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tjade. Thank you. You brought some clarity into this intricate jungle of regulations, and you gave a color also. You brought color. I like this idea that although it's intricate, there is you put different colors, and that gives a very clear idea how different all the different regulations they interact with the different issues. at stake. And here we have invited for you two great experts and friends. On one side, we have Ricard Martinez. We have two sides, Ricard Martinez. And Ricard is the Director Chairs for Privacy and Digital Transformation at the University of Valencia. And then we should have Leonor Cerda-Alberich, that is a biomedical engineer at Medical Research Institute, La Fe, and also working at the EU CAIM project. I'm sure you can, Riccardo, can you hear us?
Absolutely, good.
Very good. And Eleanor, she's not there, she's not in this, we are not seeing her, but probably we can hear her. Are you there? No? All right. Okay. So maybe she has, I cannot see her. Perhaps, will you write to her on, Ricard, on WhatsApp?
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Anyway, what we'll, while we wait that Eleanor is joining us, we will start this discussion with Ricard. And with Ricard, we have been working and discussing these issues for almost 3 years. And it is always a pleasure to interact with him because he brings all the legal aspect of the regulatory frameworks into simple terms. He makes it practical. Mm-hmm. And for that, we decided to have him. He couldn't come here today, but he's in Valencia, where there is a much better weather than here. And me, I have something that I like to discuss with you, because Tiade brought us the Draghi report. Everybody now is talking about the Draghi report, and it's very interesting because finally is pointing out that we need innovation, and it is necessary for European competitiveness. However, all this, the intricacy of regulation may hinder this innovation in the European space. Yeah, Ricard, what is your take on that, and how do you think this will affect us?
I have reading deeply the part A of the report, especially in the section regarding regulation. Let me say that the Draghi report underlined the fact that there are at minimum 200 regulations on technology in the European Union. And the report and the opinion of the experts is that, okay, it could be a problem in order to develop technology and digital transformation in the European Union. Let me say that I partially agree with the report, especially where in cases in which we have been talking about bad regulation. Let me say that, that the definition of that is that piece of regulation that has not considered real practice in the market and real capabilities of developers. In that sense, the report underlines that those who are really capable to fulfill the regulation are not the small and medium enterprises or companies in Europe, but the high-level multinationals over the world, because they have budget, they have money in order to do that. I mean, this is an advance of my tomorrow's article in the Spanish privacy review of La Ley, where I consider that, okay, legislation is there, we can change it. I think that this is irreversible. And in that sense, now is the time for soft law. Then the paper, the way that the regulators will implement their soft law on the regulation will be absolutely determinant. If data protection authorities are working as usual from a high level, without any conversation, without any dialogue with the stakeholders, with the future AI institution or AI agency of the European Union, or if the future, let me say, notified bodies are not working with researchers, innovators, small and medium companies, and they have not support in order to implement, to improve their capabilities, then it will be really sad, but Draghi's report will be absolutely correct, will be absolutely focused in the problem. Then now it's time to working with these stakeholders in order to provide certainty and capabilities to the small and medium companies that are that will be spin-offs of the universities, startups, or in any case, traditional enterprises in the European Union space.
Thank you, Ricard. I think you touch very important points, very sensitive points also, because I make a step back. I remember when there was a total different context, but to a certain extent connected to this for one aspect, that there was the market, free movement of goods, the market, and the establishment of that free movement of goods was channeled through the CE marking. And the CE marking was for product. And there were notified bodies that were put in place, were soft, let's say, standards, harmonized standards for creating that market. And then, but one thing drove that market were big companies that were obliging the suppliers to actually comply with these standards. So, and today, what you said is that in order to comply with all this regulation, only the big companies, so that the big companies will have to actually push, if there is this push toward the supply, the subcontractor, the suppliers, and all the value chain, then probably this competitiveness will happen. But it's a long way forward. I think there is a lot to discuss and a lot to demystify. And we brought, and Eleanor, welcome. Welcome you. I see you managed to connect. And
invitation.
Yeah, can you hear us? Say something.
Yes, perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
Now, Eleanor, she is working on an incredible project, EUKM. And I like this project because it's a central repository of cancer images. So they have this challenge to bring together different images from different sources, from different type of pathologies into one central repository. And we call it EUKM. And now, so Eleanor will tell us more about that, but Ricard is imagine Ricard is the regulator, and Eleanor is the one actually dealing with images, so the data, and struggling with that complexity, how these two worlds came together. And Eleanor, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and give us your vision of things.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. So basically, as you were explaining very well, EUKM is trying to put together all the fragmented data, medical images mainly, that are within Europe. Mostly we're focusing now on cancer, but in the future we may expand to other pathologies, but at the moment it's cancer imaging and related clinical information, molecular information from these patients. We try to link all this information together, and we have a hybrid infrastructure that we work in a centralized environment where we have a central repository, and we also are working in a federated way with many local nodes that are connected to the different hospitals that are data holders in the project. So in that sense, we have two sides for this project. One of them is to say, have a sustainability platform for all these research projects that are working at the moment on building data repositories. And then once the project finishes, what we do with all this data, all these images that we have been collecting. So we give the option to do a transfer of data to this central repository, and at the same time, we also do an option for all the different hospitals, clinical centers, and other programs like screening programs to connect to the infrastructure in a federated way, for example, where the data can be requested on demand based on the interest of the researchers for basically facilitating research in cancer imaging. So mainly my work here is to try and help with the data management in terms of from the technical point of view, like basically saying we need to have like a common data model that can help to harmonize all this information. For example, we can assist into the data quality control, see that all this information is, there are no images that are corrupted, that have information that, can identify a certain patient. So we have to make sure with all these scripts and at the technical level that all the data that is there complies with the regulations and so on. And at the same time, like help the clinical sites, help the researchers to enrich their data, to make it more helpful for research for like other projects. So that's a little bit of what we are doing at the moment, and we want, the idea is that all the different researchers will want to use this data for many different purposes. It doesn't mean that there is only one. For example, there's different applications. We can use it for data augmentation by using AI models, for bias correction, for validation of tools with the data that there is in EUCAIM, for creating digital twins. So there's many use cases that we can apply for the data that is in EUCAIM and in this project.
Thank you, Leonor. And so what I understand is that you have data holders, they have data, images. You have data providers that, data providers that have the images, data holders that actually hold this data and do something with this data, right?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's a bit complicated because Ricard can tell better than me about the definition and the difference now with data holder and data provider, because within the paradigm now, we are just speaking about data holders, but Ricard can explain better than me about how we are complying with these names and now within the European regulation.
Yeah. No. Let me say that there is not a joke in this project. I'm the regulator, Stefano. Then they have to deal with me in order to fulfill the law. And to summarize, you could conceive, this is not the case, but you could conceive in practical terms, EUCAIM infrastructure, such a kind of marketplace. Let me say that it will not be a marketplace. It will be an European infrastructure. But could you conceive that as a marketplace when we could encounter those who are sharing data, the so-called data holders, those who are providing tools, softwares, AI systems, etc., in a dashboard of applications that via an orchestrator could make queries to the data, and the so-called data access user or data access requesters, those who are asking in order to process data to achieve one goal that must be legitimate under European Health Data Space, secondary uses admitted. This is the main idea of the infrastructure as an environment.
Very good. Very good. So let's clarify the point. So you have data that are pulled together, I say in a simple word, and then you have users that actually will access this data. And how do you think the European Health Data Space regulation will actually facilitate this type of initiative?
let me say, as a legal expert, that first, I could underline different relevant issues. First one is that they consider that so many infrastructures, such as ERICS, ERIS, EOC infrastructures, could be considered as authorized participant. It means that we could help, we could contribute to trans-European data processing activities. This is really relevant. On the other hand, let me say that taking into account our expertise as infrastructure, we could help data holders in order to have a better or the best possible improvement in terms of enrichment of data sets and obtaining the data quality utility label, be capable for cataloging or, let me say, indexing, providing hyper-ontologies that facilitate the data processings. And on the other hand, I could add two. There are more additional relevant issues, but let me underline though two of them. First of all, we are designing a secure processing environment. That this is a precondition on European health data space in order to process data. Then secure processing environment, we are doing as EUCAIM just what you said from big companies to small and medium companies. If you want to be with us, you have to consider our different 3 levels of maturity. And if you want to be as a federal node, you have to demonstrate that you are in tier 3 of maturity in cataloging, indexing, and security issues. Then we are so many kind of tractors in order to improve the learnings and the capabilities of hospitals and health systems. And last but not least, we are working really hard on anonymization strategies. That this is really relevant in the European health data space.
Yes, in this particular last point, I want to add, as Ricardo was mentioning, that in anonymization, like we've been facing within the European health data space this question of if we will be able to link at some point for example, new data from a same patient that, in 2 years, in 3 years, there's more data from the same patient, but then we may lose basically the link with all the data that has already been uploaded into the platform because, as the definition of anonymization, we cannot really go back. But what we are working on is to try and introduce this system where basically we have like a technique that's called hashing, in particular perfect hashings, where we can actually make sure that the data holder is keeping the key for linking their data, but then we just do not have access to this key that the data holder has, and then we create a hash. We kind of basically generate a new identification for this patient. And in this particular case, then we can never track back the patient. It's true that then in this case, it's not like a full anonymization for the patient because you can always go back, even though we cannot as EUCAIM, but the data holder could. But it's true that then in the news, in the repository where this data will be located, this would be an anonymized environment. Where there has been is not possible to link back to the original patient. It's a little bit complex because we are working on how to make sure that the patient cannot be re-identified, and I know that this has it needs a risk analysis and everything that Ricardo knows way more than me on this, but we are working, as Ricardo was saying, very hard on trying to accomplish this, to try and not to have closed or dead data sets, that the data sets can be enriched with the years and so on.
What appears, we have one question. Before what appears clear to me is that due to the very nature of sensitivity of the healthcare data, it's very difficult to treat them. It's very difficult actually to transport them, the interoperability issue, the privacy issue. This makes it difficult, and so it makes it difficult, all the work of ingesting this data into AI systems, and so somehow makes the research and the development very complicated. We see it in practical, and you are actually explaining it very well. And the intricacy is not only in the regulation, is also on the practical aspects of how you transfer a data from one place to another, and you use that specific data. Question, we got a question from...
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
There's a question on the chat. It's meant to Leonor. How will the day after look like? That is, once the platform is developed, who will maintain it, and what about further funding?
Yes, so this is about there's a whole work package in OKM working on these sustainability plans. And of course, as also Ricardo just briefly
I'm working
mentioned,
on that.
yes, they are working on this, Eric, like to basically have OKM as an infrastructure. So it would be considered not just a project that finishes, it would have a continuity. And also, in terms of funding, the ideas would be that OKM is there to facilitate. It's there to facilitate data and tools and the processing environment, all the three things as well, which means that in the future projects, OKM can go there as a partner, as an entity that is used by these future projects. So in principle, for the basics of maintenance, for example, having a certain space for storage or some particular computational power or etc., it would be then included into, for example, the new projects. And if a little funding is needed for this, it can be included into the as an eligibility cost from the European Commission. So at the end of the day, we are working on many ways to keep funding the infrastructure, and hopefully, yeah, the idea is that it lasts basically over years and years, and it keeps improving. So the idea is that at the end, it has all the data, all the information, many different AI developers share their tools there in the marketplace, and they can decide if they want to share it for free or if they want to share it with a particular cost or whatever they think it suits them better. But at the end, it would be also a place for any researcher to actually execute or train their algorithms. On this note, and as Stefano was mentioning, I want to add that it's also very difficult to train AI models in a federated way when the data is not located in the same place. And not just because of the architecture, but also because imagine you have the data in different places, and this data may be structured, may have slightly different formats, may not have exactly the same parameters in the same place or in the same way. So at the end, we are also trying to help standardize, harmonize, make sure that in all the different nodes, the data is located in the same way, and that when a partner, even though they do not have access to this data, but when a partner is delivering or is sending an algorithm to be trained in a federated node, that the algorithm will work and will not crash at the very first time because the data suddenly that it's expected to find is not found in the way that we thought it was. So yeah, there's many technical difficulties that we are working at the moment, but yeah, we are optimistic that it will work and it will serve as a very it's an excellent tool for research.
Thanks, Leonora, and you bring this practical view of how difficult it is to prepare the data once, and the necessity to centralize this data to make the work on more feasible. But also this idea of funding this type of data initiative, data platform, data collaboratives. It's a big aspect that it does not have an immediate answer. Who is going to fund? Is it a marketplace? Is it not a marketplace? Public data for research can be shared, can be monetized or not? These are big questions but they have to. We will need to find an answer. Gabriel, I know you want to ask something to our guests. Please.
Yes. Hello. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ricard, Leonor. As a fan of your work, I really I'm inspired for all the things that you do. I recall that a year ago we were chatting around the development of a foundational model, particularly focused on on cancer, and there are other regions that have already taken a step on that, namely countries in the Middle East and as well in the US. And I think part of the challenges that you're referring to, particularly in the area of anonymization on the federation of data, can be maybe can be tackled through the creation of these foundational models, not necessarily large LLMs, but SLMs or so on. Can you tell us where are you in that part? Because I know that you were working actively on that one.
Yes. So as you know, we are still like, now we are in the second part of that. We kind of envision a little bit the idea of how it would be to build a foundation model. And now we are in the part of that, okay, we need to canalize this through a legal, ethical way within the EU terms to make this happen. So at the moment, well, there's a lot of work ongoing in new calls that basically are facilitating to perform this sort of research. And actually, they are, in principle, they will also probably have other entities, also from potentially maybe the US, to also participate. This is the thing that is being in the talks right now. So basically, the idea is to keep moving forward on this to make it happen, because I think building a foundation model based on this medical imaging data could really change the paradigm that we are, or how we are doing AI in medical imaging and in extension in healthcare. So as you know, 90% of the data that is in a hospital are images. So we need to make sure that basically all this information is being used for research. And I think doing a foundation model in these terms could really change how we are working and how we are building AI predictive models at the moment. So as we know, they are just working in very reduced environments, and I think this is the way to make sure that the new models, these new algorithms that will be the basis, the foundation of the future AI models are there, and we will be there to train them and provide them. And yes, as I was mentioning, there's now being some calls, and I think the European Commission has realized that we need to include the big players that facilitate this in terms of infrastructure, in terms of computing resources, as for example Microsoft, to try and make this happen.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience here for our guest? Online, do we have no? Okay. Then I have one more last thought, which is in my mind, and we've been discussing a lot, and it is about building public trust in AI technologies. It is essential, and Andrea mentioned in his intervention, Tiade as well, from different point of view. But what's your view on building public trust in AI technologies? Ricard, Eleanor.
I have a legal approach to that and a project approach to that. Let me say that the project approach to that is based on a clear strategy of stakeholders engagement at all of levels. That this will be not only a different events regarding our project and our capabilities, but a clear and let me say constant, continuous program of training. We are developing a strategy of training online in order to promote engagement, not only from patients, but from physicians, researchers, IT persons. Then we are considering different profilings in order to be transparent and to share our insights with the community. But at the end of the day, the way to do that is in AI Act, in GDPR, and in European Health Data Space. The most important issue here is, okay, you need to have a data governance. You need to be transparent and to provide trustworthy to the market, to the people, to the patients, fulfilling the law. Then for us, data governance is really relevant. AI risk approach is really relevant, and transparency about how do we work and about, let me say, what we are offering in terms of security, resilience, certainty, quality of data, and so on, I think will be absolutely essential. And at the end of the day, this could be translated as, okay, you have to fulfill AI Act prescriptions, especially for AI risk tools.
And Leonor, your views on this?
I think for building trust, I mean, for particularly for AI, I think the most important would be to probably to have two phases. One of them is to try and organize or facilitate some sort of clinical trials with AI algorithms to try and test basically how the new technologies can actually improve the current clinical pathway. So basically, if we don't really treat these algorithms as if they are like drugs, like the new like treatments, we will I think the clinicians first, and then the patients will not be able to trust them completely. So we need to prove that they work in the same way that other treatments are proved nowadays in some sort of clinical trials, and then also to incorporate and to introduce the patients into this workflow and this pathway. They need to know, they need to understand what these tools are doing, why they are predicting that this is the best treatment, or this other treatment is the best one, or that in a couple of years they will have some recurrence or anything. They need to be part of this in the same way that the oncologist usually discusses with them the options based on their knowledge and the results of the different tests they perform on them. And AI should be one additional arm into the decision. And I think the only way is to have both elements to make sure that we embrace and we build trust on these AI technologies. And on the way, I'm not saying that we need to trust them. I'm saying that in this way, we will make sure that they are trustworthy. Because this is also something we need to prove to be able to be used in clinical practice. So to me, to make sure that these solutions are implemented, we need to take a step forward and put the algorithms and AI into test in clinical trials in a clinical setup for in this environment in the same way that we test other potential therapies. That would be my opinion on this.
Thank you. And I think that Andrea said the doctors have 7 minutes in average for us. So I cannot ask all the questions I want. So I will actually ask them to this AI tool once they will be ready, probably. At least they will not discard my question. They will answer all the questions, maybe not all correctly. But I see that in 10 years' time, there will be a lot of more of this AI implemented into the different clinical settings. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ricard and Leonor. And I need to free my guests here because there is the coffee break. I need to give them some space. And thank you a lot. A big clap for you if you can hear.